remarkable, successful 30-year titan in business with having multiple businesses that generate multiplied millions of dollars.
And if that plan happens to be to build $1 million company, which I can help you do.
But he's humble. He's a man of God. He's a family man.
The world's news organizations are built on everything but positivity.
He is an influential entrepreneur and business speaker for over 30 years.
I've got to forecast. I've got to pronounce. I've got to project. I've got to share with you my ideas, my vision, my goals for not only myself, but for you.
That's why he's came up with his incredible concept of taking and creating a platform for people that are wired differently.
And you got to understand that your habits of your person and your habits of your business and your habits of your spirituality have to lead to the North Star of who you are. We need to figure out who we want to be in life. The gravity of it all, the gravity of it all. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. I'm here in my studio again. I'm here in Angola, Indiana, and I had the most amazing 4th of July weekend. We got to work real hard. We got to, I guess you call it play real hard. Our family has just always been a working family. We grew up working, and we found peace in working. We found peace in working the family business. And so as my wife and I have grown over the last 30 years together, we found ourselves back into my family business, which you all have been kind of hearing me talk about the 4th of July week. This week is the Super Bowl of our families, Wired Differently Families Week, because we come back home to a little community called Angola, Indiana, and we celebrate the fact that Angola, Indiana, Jimerson, Lake James, Indiana, is actually the donut capital of the world. I mean, you may say it's silly, maybe funny, but we know I'm silly. We've demonstrated I'm silly 9.1 million times in views wrestling an alligator, right? So we know that being wired differently can be a little silly. It can be a little exposing. It can be a little energetic. And I literally find peace in working in where I grew up. And so what's that have to do with gravity? Well, I'm going to kind of set some things up this morning about the gravity of it all. I think there's just no escaping the pull or the gravity of your life, the gravity of what made you, the gravity of, those of you who are watching me right now, and I don't see comments, but I'll look at them a little later, but I see them mounting up. There's like over 50 comments coming right now. There's for 50 people on. So here's the thing. Somewhere, somehow, sometime, obviously, you came into this earth, and for some reason, where you landed in that particular time with the family that you were born into, the process that was all about that created a pull on you, created gravity. Literally, I don't know who you're. Very few people I know that don't want to go back home. That pull of what made you. A lot of people spend their entire life trying to figure out what made them, who made them. Some people don't even know who their parents are, and they still want to know where they came from. What is that gravity? What makes you special? What's this wired differently thing about you? And I just kind of focus on this word gravity, and I wanted to kind of shock you a little bit, wake you up this morning, because some of us had long weekends, and I just wanted to kind of just take you to this video and just wake you up with the gravity of it all. Sandra Bullock in the movie Gravity. The gravity about what you feel about the pull and the lightness of not having gravity, but why are we so attracted to it? Can't replace Sandra Bullock in about anything. It's amazing. Weightless here, no gravity. Love this movie. Trying to find her way. Sandra's a brilliant actor. This movie just lets you obviously be free, lets you float, lets you understand. There is really gravity. This world, this idea of who we're gonna be, who we wanna be. How do we take ourselves through space and time and understand we always wanna go home, but yet we wanna be free. We would love to float. We would love to not have to be pulled so many directions. I love the space that this represents, this idea of floating, freedom, gravity. Gravity, gravity, gravity. We're not getting away from it.
There's one simple hearing hack anyone can use to improve.
And I always do something goofy like that. But wasn't it a great scene with Sandra Bullock? Wasn't it great to just kind of see the opposite of gravity, this idea of floating, this idea of freedom? But what I want to talk to you today is about, like, when I look at Sandra Bullock and I look at your life and I look at this idea of gravity and where it is in your life and how it affects us, we can't escape this idea of pull in our life. And so this morning, I wanted to motivate you. I wanted to understand that somehow we need to use this idea of gravity for us. Wouldn't we just love to be floating through air? I wouldn't like to be lonely out there in space like Sandra, but man, she was relieved she was floating. But at the end of the day, at the end of the show, she is craving gravity. She wants to be pulled back. And I think we need to talk about the subconscious of gravity, this idea of what you're doing in life and the gravity of your past, the gravity of the present, the gravity even of the future pull. The Bible talks to us about in Proverbs 23:7, it talks about, as a man thinketh is he, as a man thinketh is his heart is he. We need to talk about the gravity of what we're thinking, the gravity and the idea of what's pulling us in our life. Sandra was floating around in space wondering, man, isn't this beautiful to be free? But once you're free, where are you floating to? How are you doing? You always need to understand that at the end of the day, even in that movie, Sandra Bullock has gravity. It pulls her back. We look for this freedom and floating and doing whatever we want, wherever we want, and how we want to do it. But even the most successful people in this world have postured themselves to always be subject to gravity. And one of the things that I coach about here in Wire Differently Coaching, the Wire Differently Academy, is that we want you to be subject to gravity, but we want you to also understand that the goal, the North Star of what we're doing in our entrepreneurial lives or in our lives is searching for that freedom, that ability to float like Sandra Bullock, to have some control of our idea to float, but then come home when we want to, be suspect to the gravity that we're aware of. So as a child, we're conditioned for gravity. As an adult, we're conditioned for gravity. We're always being conditioned for gravity. When I say gravity, I want you to start thinking about the word pull. There's things pulling on us all the time. Sandra had nobody pulling on her. She was free, free, free. I don't know how long that would last, how long you could be subject to something like that. But we certainly try to become that. We try to become that in our business lives. We try to become all these things in this world by creating our own entrepreneurial mindsets, creating these jobs so that we have freedom, so that we don't have so many things pulling on us. So when I say the word of gravity, I want you to think about the idea of something pulling on you. I want you to understand that you're always going to be subject to something pulling on you. And generally, the things pulling on you are the things that were put in your mind. You were conditioned as a child, as a young adult, or what the TV is conditioned, or what you're watching. Gravity is suspect to so many things. I think about gravity a lot, but I don't think about it as the word gravity. I think about the things that are controlling me in life. And a quick story. Last night I was sleeping, and my wife and I were having a good night's sleep, and the phone went off a couple times from the donut shop or this or that. But we easily went back to work, and that gravity didn't bother me because it didn't turn out to be anything. But what really did bother me was the gravity of my grandson. My grandson came into my room about 2:30 in the morning. He was screaming, "Papa, Papa, Papa." "What's wrong, Sailor? What's wrong, Sailor?" He says, "The aliens, they're eating me. I can't sleep. The aliens keep eating me." I said, "Well, get in bed with Papa. Aliens can't get in this room." He's 9 years old. And so when you think about the subconscious or the challenge that even he has as a 9-year-old and his dreams, the gravity of what he's watching, the gravity of what he's doing, what's pulling on him in his mind, what he's watching in the day, what he's doing in the day, what he's thinking in the day, the games he's playing in the day, the certain things, maybe being away from his parents and home and hanging out with us for a week at the cottage. He has gravity. I remember being in 7th grade, but actually almost Sailor's age. And it's funny how I was out judging a parade, the 4th of July parade, and they asked me to judge. It was great. And the gravity of that situation, well, there was a lot of people pulling on me. A, they wanted me to judge their float to be the winner, but two, they wanted to talk to me. They were pulling on me. The gravity of people pulling on me, the gravity of the pressure of judging, the gravity of all of that. But it's funny, the ironically thing about that is as I'm walking off of the parade, I see I wouldn't call him an elderly man, but he's, 20 years older than me. And it turns out to be my 7th grade teacher. And here's the man who actually taught me about gravity. He's the one that actually taught me about the solar system. He's the one that taught me about space. He literally taught me how that the sun was here and how it was fixated, but the earth went around the sun like this. And then at the same time, the moons were going around the earth like this. And the earth was going around the sun like this. And it was creating what we call the gravitational pull. And it's funny how many people I take out into the ocean with me on my yacht, and we're out on the yacht and they're asking me about the tide, and I asked them the tide and they didn't understand what a tide is, and they say, "No, we don't know, we just know the water goes up and down." Well, it's the gravitational pull of the earth being spun at the same time where the moon is spinning around the earth and then the earth spinning around the sun. And the body of water is so large in the oceans that it covers more than half of the earth. So the water has to shift as the earth is spinning in circles. And so there's no way that you can predict at really any certain time with perfect certainty where exactly the height of the water is going to be in any of these large bodies of ocean that are subject to the gravitational pull. You see, gravity drives the world. Gravity drives the solar system. Gravity drives us. And so there's things in our life that are subject to gravity. And I think if you can understand that in your life when you're not feeling well and things aren't going well, that gravity is cyclical. Gravity is predictable. We know the ocean's going to go up and down. We know the sun's going to rise and set. We know that gravity's going to, we know we throw something in the air, it's going to ultimately come down. And so what I want you to understand is your personality traits and your ideas and your thoughts and your flows and the feelings that you have are subject to the same gravity. We can't always be up, and we certainly can't always be down. I promise you I'd motivate you, and I want to motivate you this morning because however you're feeling right now, I talked to several people this week that were very, very, very happy, but some of them came up to me and they said, "Todd, I watch your show because you motivate me and you make me feel good. You make me give me hope. You let me understand that there's going to be a better day." And that's what I'm trying to talk to you about today. The gravity that you're in right now, the gravity that's around you right now, the Sandra Bullock floating, the zeal and the feeling of freedom that we're trying to capture is coming. It's coming. Actually, it's actually going to come here on earth. And it's cyclical. It's like the tide in the ocean. It comes up, it comes down, it comes up super high, and it comes super low, it comes super high, and it comes down kind of super medium. And it's always adjusting. And sometimes it's really, really, really low because the gravity and the spin of the earth and the sun around the specific time where the moon is pulling really releases certain gravity pulls, and where the ocean is actually, do you realize in front of my house, I have a beautiful acre on the ocean, a beautiful home, approximately 8,000 square feet. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying I'm blessed, but I get to stand on the balcony and I look over the ocean, and it's a very calm bay most of the time. And there literally are times in that bay where the water is so high that it almost covers my pier and covers the plants and the trees and the mangroves that are out there in the bay. But then there's some days where the tide is so low, where the gravitational pull from the moon around the earth and the earth around the sun that has created this perfect position where it's so low that I see the bottom of the ocean floor in my bay. Now, the idea of the gravity of the situation of this is when I first looked at the house to buy it, I thought it was beautiful, 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 beautiful. But then when I came back after I bought it, I actually looked out there one day and I thought, oh my gosh, what happened to all the water? All I could see was dirt. And it was not ugly dirt. It was just dirt. You could see the bottom of the ocean floor. And I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't understand the idea of the gravitational pull. I didn't understand the way the gravity worked and moved it and gave you high tides and low tides. But the interesting thing about the low tide was that I thought at one point it was depressing. It was low. It wasn't working. The gravity wasn't working for me. I liked the high tide because the high tide had me feeling good. And there was no unclarity in the water, and the manatee were coming through, and the dolphins were coming through, and people were boating, and it was fun, and we could see all the beautiful ocean, the sunset. But in the low tide, it was murky and dirty, and there was really not much you could really celebrate at it. But as I stuck out there and watched the low tide, and the morning sun came up the next day with the low tide still there, I realized there was something special even about the gravity of the low tide. And it was the low tide brought in amazing wildlife. Every color bird created came in to feast on the bottom of the ocean floor, where shrimp and other poor stranded minnows and people, the fish that didn't get out of the tide, on the dumb fish that didn't get out of there, right? There's birds, pelicans, spoonbills, all kinds of egrets and big birds swooping down and taking the prey. It was like the most beautiful thing I ever saw, but it came from the gravity of a low tide. And so what I'm trying to get to you today is, the motivation I want to give you is how much I love you. 17 minutes into this is the gravity. I think that we are all in this rush to be Sandra Bullock, floating around, feeling weightless and stressless and strifeless. And we can get there. But I want you to appreciate the gravity of what it takes to get there. Because without the low tide, we can never have the high tide. And so why not celebrate the low tide and the beauty of what it could be, right? And so I wanted to just bring this message to you this morning about gravity. The gravity I learned from my Mr. Penick, my teacher, has propelled me to be like the best yacht tour guide out there, teaching gravity to people from up north, right? I also think about the economy. I think about a good friend of mine named Cody. We were sitting out having cigars last night, and we were talking about the economy. We were talking about the cyclical nature of the gravity of the economy. And you were kind of low about the stock market. And we're kind of low about what the economy is going to do. And we're low about crypto, and we're low about maybe what inflation is going to do. And we're low about all these things. But what we're sitting down and we're looking at, and we just realized that the gravity of the cyclical side of economy, the gravity of people, the gravity of the nature of things, he started to explain to me the gravity of just the idea of crypto coin and the gravity of the idea of the NASDAQ and the Dow and how stock works. You see, gravity is at play not only in our personal life, where we want to go home, when we want to be always pulled to go home. I want you to understand that gravity is your friend and you can't escape gravity. And I want you to understand that you need to use gravity in your life, because as it's pulling you back to your home front, as I started this show this morning, me pulling me back home to the donut capital of the world, pulling me back home to, we have people who want to talk with me and shake my hand and say, how you doing? Thank you for what you did for this community. The gravity of that love, the gravity of the people around, it's never going to leave you. And sometimes when you're not feeling well, let me motivate you here. Sometimes when you're not feeling well, just go home. Go home where it makes you feel good. Get in front of the water where it makes you feel good. Go to the woods like David Thoreau and see if the woods can't teach you what you can't learn, right? Do what you've got to do. Go home. The gravity of home is your friend. It's not your enemy. The gravity of what Mr. Penick taught me in 7th grade was my friend, not my enemy. I now understand how the tide works and how it goes up and how it goes down, how the gravity is pulling me and pushing me. I understand now after talking to Cody last night that the crypto is actually a cyclical cycle. There's gravity attached to the economic system behind crypto. Crypto literally, as he explained to me, is a 4-year cycle, and we're on the last 6 months of the 4-year cycle. It's preparing to bounce again. All the statistics and algorithms show us that the cycle and the gravity of the way the coin has been built and made, it hasn't missed in 4 years. Sometimes gravity misses. Sometimes gravity isn't exactly predictable. But at the end of the day, gravity is moving everything in your life. Gravity is this idea of something pulling on you. And the whole Wired Differently mindset is about you understanding the gravities in your life. Is crypto pulling on you? Is Mr. Penick pulling on you? Are the aliens pulling on you in your sleep? Right? Is the cyclical nature of the dollar, the yen, Solana, Dogecoin, what is pulling on you? What is the gravity in your life? Because at the end of the day, we all have gravity. I have a good friend by the name of Laura. She's an amazing person. She came up to me, saw me, and says, Todd, I just want to tell you, I love your shows. And when I'm not feeling well, I come here and I listen to your shows. And so I want to speak to you, Lori. I want you to understand that the gravity in your life, I want to speak to especially you, Lori, because I know you're probably listening this morning. Whatever's going on in your life, it's the gravity of life. It's this idea of what God gave us, this gravity of our thoughts, this gravity of the idea of how we're going to live and finish the rest of our life, how it's going to affect us, the gravity of what our parents were like, the gravity of what our grandparents were like, the gravity of the way we were treated in middle school and high school, and some of us treated in even elementary school. It's the gravity of all those things that have been stuffed into our brains so eloquently, so thoughtfully, so purposely by hopefully God in your life. And I want you to unpack these things and unsort these things, because the gravity in our life is really only dictated by one thing. The gravitational pull in our life is only put together by one thing. The gravity and the weight of the circumstances, the gravity of your life, the gravity of the way you're feeling, good, bad, or indifferent, is only predicated by one thing. And that's you. The hope is there, man. Everything you need to have good gravity or bad gravity, to turn bad gravity to good gravity, to take Sandra Bullock floating in the air in a panic situation, to rescue herself, to pull the mask off, to float free and be free from the entire peril of prospectively dying out in space with no air, with no gravity, and the whole pull of getting and saving yourself and finally being released and floating in the air. The gravitational float of freedom can be the freedom thought for all of us if we understand the one thing that drives our gravitational pull. There's only one thing, and it's the law of attraction. I want you to think about that for a moment. 100% of the time. And I want you to understand to start motivating yourself, because when there's a low, 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 statistically, there's going to be a high, high, high. And when there's a low, 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 there's actually beauty in the low, 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 because you're going to be able to need it to take you to the high, high, high. And you have to be purposeful about not wanting to stay in the low, low, low. The low, low, low is not where you're going to go. The low, low, low is the gravitational pull of the negative side of things. But there's gravitational pulls of positive side of things in our life. There's the gravitational pull of things that can be beautiful in the side. Like when we win and it feels good, there's this gravity of pulling us back more. I want to win. I want to win. It's the gravity of pulling us up. It's the gravity of pulling us to a victory. It's the gravity of sharing God's love, the sharing friends and space of your family. Just like I had a cigar with Cody last night. I got in so much trouble. I left to go down to help out with the kids at the donut shop. I worked for an hour and a half, and I went to his house, see how he was doing, had a cigar, and it was midnight. My phone ran out of juice, and my wife's like, "Where are you? Life 360 went off. Where are you?" Woo, I had to have Cody phone a favor in. He's with me. He's with me. Thank goodness she likes Cody. But at the end of the day, I want you to think about your gravity. I want you to think about your pull. 25 minutes in this, we're going to wrap this baby up, because I want the gravity for you to understand. right? I want you to understand the law of attraction. And that's how we move ourselves through the gravity of the low, low lows. That's how we move ourselves through the gravity, even of the high, high highs. We understand that the only way through gravity and to make gravity work for us is to use this superpower of gravity that's been provided to us. If you're not a God follower or a Christ follower, it's okay. You just can't not admit that good things come from good thoughts and bad things come from bad thoughts. So the law of attraction is this idea of the thoughts that you have bring the things that you think of. Bad things come from bad thoughts. You dream about aliens eating you all night or play these games like my poor grandson or these video games, and you think about him and you think about him and you think about him and his thoughts, the law of attractions happen. The poor kid's under attack by aliens in his sleep. The law of attraction happened. He was attracted to the game. He was attracted to the winning the game for some silly little bells and buttons and cherries. I don't know what they get in these games, but at the end of the day, he's in it for hours. And at night when he goes to sleep, when it's shut off, the attractionness of the game, the attractionness of the winning or losing of the game filters through his system. And he's attracted to that negative thought and it plays itself out. So flip the script on this, my friends. I want you to understand the law of attraction is real. Think of the good things. Think of the positive things. Even when you're in the low, low lows and the tide is down, start looking for your shrimp. Start looking for your meals. Start looking for the sunrise. Start looking for the things that have come from it and realize for a moment right now, realize that the tide always comes back up. Cody says crypto always comes back up. Mr. Phoenix says the gravitational pull always comes back up. The sunrise always comes back up. The moon always comes back around. The nighttime always comes back around. It always happens. It's gravity. Gravity is predictable. Gravity is good. Gravity is only bad when you look at it in a bad way. The law of attraction allows us to understand, don't look at gravity as a negative thing. Look at gravity as the law of attraction of positive things. Understand that if something's going bad in your life, something's going bad in your family, understand that sucks. I know it. I don't want to be there again. I hate it. But understand that statistically that the good is coming, right? The gravity that literally is there in your life is a good life. I want you to understand as we move through this, how important gravity is in your life. I want you to understand how important you are in my life. And I want you to understand how important God is in your life, certainly when we talk about gravity and what he has anything to do with that. "28 minutes into this show on gravity. I think about these shows a lot. I kind of wonder how they're going to go. And I kind of always walk out of the show like feeling, oh, man, did I help somebody, man? I know I helped myself because I know I'm working through things right now, a lot of things. Should I go? Should I stay? Should I sell? Should I buy? Am I spending enough time with my family? Is anybody listening to me out there? Don't you know how important it is to be wired differently? Proverbs 23:7 says, in kindred to gravity, in kindred to the law of attraction, God says, as a man thinketh with his heart is he. Like God set that up. It was talking about when you're listening to other people and they're trying to sell you something, they're trying to convince you of something. Don't listen to the things that they're going to give you. Don't listen to their words of affirmation. Don't listen with their actions. But look at them and try to understand what they're thinking. As a man thinketh with his heart is he. He wants us to look at that person who's coming at us with the gravity of their product, their process, their thought process, their will, the gravity of their will for their life, not God's will, but their will for their life. Understand the gravity of that. Because if you can understand what a man thinketh is he. A lot of us interpret that scripture one way or the other, but that's the way God intended that scripture, to see that person as he thinks, protect yourself from the gravity of him or her, that convincing person trying to persuade you, more likely for manipulation than motivation. So I want you to think about that for yourself, though. If you're on the other side of the table, right? I want you to understand that the power of your thoughts, as the man thinketh with your heart, is you. So make sure you're thinking with your heart, not with just your brain or your pocketbook. I want you thinking with your heart. And especially I want you thinking with your heart because you've invited Christ into your heart, and he is the conscience of your subconscious. The gravitational pull of Jesus Christ is what we're talking about here. All gravity can be persuaded for the good and motivated for the good if Christ is your subconscious. Proverbs 23:7 says that very thing. Get you some Jesus. That's your gravity. Hey, my friends, great show this morning. Get to toddsaylor.com. Become wired differently, right? Be a misfit of this world. We need you. My new book, Your Will Be Done, is here in paperback in 2 weeks. Your orders are coming. And today we're going to give away the $500 winner. Stand by. God